Hello and welcome to the Island Lamb, and I'm Diane, and this is episode 7, Block Island WindPower. And the reason I wanted to bring up WindPower is because we are tracking and watching some weather that's coming up through the Caribbean once again, and it looks like it may slide over Florida. It could come up through the Carolinas and possibly cause a nor'easter condition for us out here on Block Island. And we are keeping an eye on that for a number of reasons. We have some friends coming out this weekend, and we have to keep an eye on the seas and the winds, because if they reach a certain level, they will cancel the ferries. So I thought this might be a good episode to mention that we are the first offshore wind power farm in our area, and we have 5 beautiful turbines that are sitting off the northern end of the island, 3 miles from shore. And there was a bit of controversy initially. Islanders weighed in on it and voted on whether or not we wanted it. We had a bunch of big old diesel generators that were providing all the power on Block Island, unless you of course had propane. But I mean electricity. We had the second highest electrical rate in the country, only second to Hawaii. And so when they started talking about running a cable from the mainland to the island and putting up 5 wind turbines and then connecting that power through that cable, supplying Block Island with power, and then being able to sell that power back to the mainland, my husband and I were all for it. Now, one of the concerns we had was, yes, we were happy to go from the diesel to clean air wind power turbines, but we were concerned about what would happen when they actually turned the switch. So we did invest in a generator that is hardwired to the house. And I have to say, I am very happy that we have not had to use it due to a hurricane or a storm. It does a test every Monday morning to let us know it's there and it's ready. So we are just watching the weather, keeping that in mind, and grateful that we have wind power and grateful that we have a generator. I know there are still a lot of folks that are digging out of that mess in Florida, and we pray that that weather does not go through and damage or deter any of the work that they're already doing down there. So let's get to the knitting. So today I am wearing a beautiful shawl, and this shawl I found this shawl in the Vogue Knitting Magazine, early fall 2018, and this is what the cover looked like. And by the way, I love this pattern that's on the cover, and there's a lot of great patterns in this particular issue. But this is a design called the Buttoned Gradient Shawl, and here's what it looks like in the magazine. And the designer is Jacqueline van Dillen, and I bought the kit. So the kit was a gradient yarn, as you can see, from Prisms, and it's Prism's Merino Mia Gradient Pack. And you got, let's see, you got 8 skeins, and it took you from this beautiful soft blue, celadon blue, all the way across to this gorgeous teal. And there is a I-cord bind off, which makes for a really professional, beautiful edge. I bought these gorgeous buttons at my local yarn shop in Wickford, Rhode Island, called the Mermaid's Pearl. The unique thing about this pattern, and I want to just get my notes, the unique thing about this pattern is this Indian cross stitch. And it was a little tedious, but as you can see, I think it was well worth it. You don't have to create buttonholes because you just use one of the little holes that Indian cross stitch creates. And it, you can wear it like a poncho, which is kind of how I have it on today. You could certainly wear it with those buttons down the middle. And you could unbutton it and just throw it over your shoulder. So I'm very pleased with this. The reason I decided to show this to you today is because I think this shawl is my Barcelona shawl, because before COVID, for one of my husband's big birthdays, we made the trip to Barcelona. I've always wanted to go to Spain, and we decided that that would be a great way to celebrate my husband's birthday. And I wore this to a beautiful concert, and we went to see 3 incredible flamenco guitarists, and it was a night that I will remember forever. So in honor of the Barcelona Knit Festival that is going on as we speak, I thought I'd wear my Barcelona shawl and put on some pretty little dangly earrings and share with you that wonderful evening, but also this gorgeous yarn, this beautiful gradient yarn. I've been talking about this design for, I think, since I started podcasting. So this is the Oraefi, and I have a lot of details in some previous podcasts, but I'll also put it in the show notes. I became acquainted with this pattern, I believe, because of Instagram and Ravelry, and I do believe another podcast that I was watching. This is an Icelandic design. It is Lopi Lite. I used the heather black and the white. I don't know that this was intentional, but you can see how the sleeves bell a little bit here. I just think it was the way that the carrying the 2 yarns in the Fair Isle kind of worked out. I do like it. I have not blocked this yet, but as you can see, it's really pretty stunning. So as I was knitting the yoke, because this is a top-down construction, you knit the sleeves first, then you put on the stitches for the body, you do a little waist shaping, and then you put the sleeves on. It's kind of an interesting pattern in the way that the back is a little bit longer than the front, and you account for that by adding extra rows on the back by the underarm. And you're going to put those extra stitches that are going to coordinate with those extra rows when you graft. And it came out, I mean, the grafting is seamless. It's a beautiful pattern. The thing I was most concerned about as I was working up the yoke was the size of this cowel. And as you can see, I'm tall, I'm a large, large person, but I have a small head. And I was worried that this big cowel was going to kind of make my head look even smaller. So what I did is I made it as a separate piece. So I worked up the body. I did, I think, 4 rows of a knit 1, purl 1. I started off by using the size 4 needle, which is what we started with down at the cuff and at the hem. And I felt it was sticking out a little bit, so I went down to a size 3. I've tried this on with a white turtleneck or a black turtleneck, and I think that's going to work perfect for me. And when I want that big feeling inside my coat or while I'm walking, I'll wear this. So what I did is I played with this a lot. I actually ran out of yarn playing with this. So I cast it on, I did a knit 1, purl 1 rib here. I did a knit 1, purl 1 here. But here I did it at the bottom. I did it on the size 8 needle that the sweater is made on. I gave myself, actually I did not do a knit 1, purl 1. I did a stocking knit, and I did a stocking knit for 4 rows, then I did a purl row. Then I started working the pattern for the cowl. When I got towards the top, I decreased after the last round of the white. There was a 1 row of the black, and on that stocking knit black row, I decreased 20% of the stitches. And then I did a 4, maybe a 5 row knit 1, purl 1 on a size 3 needle. And the reason I did that, I don't really want that here, but I wanted that to hold so that when I put it on, I wouldn't get air down into my neck. I would still get the look of the cowl, and I would be warm and toasty in that. So you kind of get the idea. I still have this beautiful look, but I also can wear this, I think, a little bit more often without having the cowl. I'd be interested to know what you think. It'll be interesting to see how it feels when I have it on. I think the white turtleneck is going to kind of hold everything together, and we'll just see. But I'm very pleased with the pattern. I'm pleased with the style, the yarn. It's a beautiful design with these little cubes. And so again, in the show notes is the name of the designer. The pattern is on Ravelry, and give it a shot. Okay, so I I teased you and I tried to whet your appetite last week talking about a pattern that my mom had made like when I was 16 years old. And it was a jean jacket and we loved it. We can't find the pattern, can't find the sweater. I've been searching. And a couple of years ago, actually, I think it was just last year, I was looking at some yarns online and I was looking at this yarn by this company that is in Brazil, and it is called Circulo. 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 And this yarn is called Jeans. This is 100% cotton. But what was exciting when I was starting to look at this yarn is they had a pattern which was designed by them called the Jeans Jacket. Now, you know I'm emotionally attached to my mom's jean jacket. This is not exactly the same, but I do think that it looks just like a jean jacket. So I bought the yarn and I have worked up the two front pieces and I have worked up the sleeve. I think this is the sleeve. Yes, this is the sleeve. I think that looks like a dark denim. Now, right off the bat, I had a decision to make with this jean jacket. The pattern calls for you to cast on and then crochet the band for the waist. And then I think it's going to be I forget how many inches now, but X number of inches long. And then you're going to pick up those stitches and then work in stocking knit for the back. And you're going to do the same thing on the front. You're going to crochet the front bands and you're going to pick up. And you're going to do the same thing on the sleeve. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I'm not a great crocheter. I thought I would just put on the number of stitches for the stocking knit part, work up the pieces, put the pieces together, and then I think I'm going to try a picked up double knit button band and work it around. I have no idea if that's going to be the right method, but that's what I'm going to try. The collar is stocking knit. Now it has pockets that you put on afterwards. I just have a feeling that this is done on a size 8 needle, so you know it's got some weight to it. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about having pockets right in this area, so I may or may not do that. Now, where the stitching is, this is a crocheted chain here and here, and down here and here, and you're going to hand stitch it with the gold to create that seamed look. So this again is one of their yarns. It's called Clea, and it's pretty much like just a little bit thicker than string. I'm probably going to double it. This is a project I'm just going to take my time on. For me, it's all going to be about the finishing of this. The knitting is going to be the easy part. Like I said, I'm almost done. I've got to finish the back. I'll do the collar. I'll make the pockets just so I can have them. Decide whether or not I'm going to make those crocheted chains that I'm going to do the embroidery on. I imagine the reason that you're doing that is so that this very thin yarn doesn't sink into the stitches, that it has something to sit on top of. And then I'll think about what I'm going to do about the bands. I am going to order myself some rivet buttons like my mom had, and they call for that in the pattern as well. So, jean jacket, gonna give it a shot. All right, I don't know if I still need to say spoiler alert, but I will. I'm still working on the MCAL. As I said to you before, I'm not rushing through the process. I continue to see some knitters who are falling out, who have just said they're done. Maybe they've made all of Clue 1 and they just don't want to go any further. And then I have seen a lot of great knitters who have continued. So, you know, it's all a matter of, I think, how much time you have and if you're enjoying the process. So I think I mentioned to you last week that I hadn't been knitting on anything else because I was just concentrating on the MCAL. And I just decided to back off of the MCAL, finish my Oraefi, pick up my jean jacket, contemplate my next projects, and just little by little work on the MCAL. So I have made some progress, and the progress is clue 4, which clue 4, if you recall, clue 3 left us with this big long pop color band that had a beautiful wave stitch on it. And I peeked at clue 4 and I saw that we were going to work these. So it starts off where you had these stitches. These were live stitches. I had them on a cable. You put them back on the needle and you start working these stripes. And each time you get down to this pop, you pick up and you work back up. And each time you're doing it, you're decreasing. When you get to this end, you're decreasing. So you get to this point where you're here. I have the whole other side to do. We know that there's something that's going to happen down below the chevrons. And you can see that this is a very, very big piece. And when I looked at clue 4, I saw that we were going to be picking up here and doing more more chevrons. And I just decided I have enough of the chevrons. I think that's busy enough. We've got enough stripes going on. I think I'm just going to do what some of the other knitters have done, is just pick up these stitches and make like a little scallop. I don't know what color I'm going to use yet. I have quite a bit of yarn left over in all 3, so I'll have some choices there. And that is where I am with the MCal. Good luck to those of you who are still knitting, and I totally understand for those who have stopped. You know, our time is precious, our knitting time is precious, and I do believe we should only be knitting on things that we love. And if it's making us watch look at our clocks, and if it's making us think, oh, I'm not going to have time, or I've got to rush through this, or I'm not going to get my other things done, then it's no longer fun. And I only want to have fun when I'm knitting. I mean, that's the joy of it for me anyway, I think for most of you. So I also wanted to mention a couple of other podcasters that I have been enjoying. And Leslie of A Friend to Knit With, I think after Fruity Knitting and Andrea Mowry, I think she was my next podcaster that I kind of binged on. I love Leslie. She lives in, I believe, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I love her aesthetic. Her mom was a knitter. Her sisters are knitters. She's lost her mom. We went through that journey with her a little bit. She shared some of her mom's knitting with us and some photos of her, and a pattern that her mother had designed that her mom always gave as a free pattern. It's a baby sweater. And I think that I always had that in the back of my mind, that once again, if I ever did this, I wanted to make sure I included my mom and the influence my mom had on me in knitting. And so I'm really glad I've done that. And I thank you, Leslie, for that. So if you get a chance, check her out. She's delightful. And by the way, her daughter is studying in Spain, and I wonder if she got to the Barcelona Knit Festival. So we'll have to wait for her next episode and see. Another podcaster that I've been enjoying, and she's not a knitting podcaster, but she is incredible. So she's a wonderful photographer, vlogger. She lives in the middle north Sweden, and she lives there with her husband. She won the photography award in her category in Sweden. It was actually presented an award by the Swedish king. Her podcast, even my husband watches them with me. If we work out and we're all sweaty, sometimes we'll put one of hers on where she's going winter swimming, ice swimming, and we just go, ah! But she will take you for a beautiful guide. If you can start with the very beginning. So if you find her, click on her, how they have the circle with the podcaster's picture in the middle. If you can go to the very beginning and watch that first episode, and you'll just get a feel for what she's going to be about. I find I love to, not only after I work out and I'm just trying to cool off, but I love in the morning when it's quiet to just put one of her podcasts on and just knit. The music is fantastic. She produces most of her own music. The photography is fantastic, and the way of life is definitely worth checking into. And then I wanted to share a book with you. Let's see, what have I done with the book? So this is a knitter. I'm not sure if she's a knitwear designer. I think she is, but she's now recently become an author. So her name is Patty Lyons. I took a class with Patty Lyons a couple of years ago here on Block Island. Our fiber mill, which I'm going to do a whole episode on at some point, our fiber mill, Northlight Fiber, has had Vogue Knitting retreats here and has also invited some different designers and authors to come and do classes. So I took this class, the Knitting Bag of Tricks, quite a few years ago, and she's taken this class on tour. And I believe because she has gotten so much positive feedback that she was encouraged by all of us to produce the book. So it's Knitting Bag of Tricks by Patty Lyons. Over 70 sanity-saving hacks for better knitting. The illustrations of our Franklin Habit, in case you don't know Franklin Habit, another wonderful knitwear designer. And I've been knitting, like, as you know, since I was a child. And I find things and found things in her class that I use to this day. For instance, when I'm knitting cables, you know how sometimes on one side of your cable, the first side of your cable, your purl stitches are nice and tidy, but on the last stitch of the cable or the space in between where you turn the cables, that leg of the last knit stitch looks a little saggy. Well, and those of you who are from Norway, you've probably been doing this normally. I think it's kind of like the Norwegian purl, but for me, it was knitting, it was called the lazy purl, and instead of bringing the yarn over the purl, you bring it underneath. So you effectively use less yarn when you purl that way, and it pushes the stitches together and closes them up nicely. So I learned that years ago when I took her class. I've been using it ever since, and there's all kinds of other little fun little anecdotes and photos, or illustrations I should say, and little tips. And she does a good job of talking about gauge in such a way that I think it makes thinking about and getting gauge, what that means, a lot more fun than our traditional, oh, I gotta get gauge, is this the right yarn, is this the right pattern, do I have the right needle? So she really kind of makes that fun. So that's Patty Lyons. And I think that's all I have for today. I am so enjoying this time that I'm spending with you. Thank you once again for your comments and your encouragement and your stories. And I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.